It was a quiet evening. The sky had turned orange and birds were flying home. People were walking quickly on the road, tired after a long day. Among them was a man named Armin. He looked simple, wearing old shoes, a faded shirt, and carrying a small bag on his shoulder. He had a calm face, but his eyes were deep, like they held many stories. As Armin walked down the busy street, something made him stop. He saw two small children sitting on the footpath. They looked about 6 or 7 years old. One was a boy, the other a girl, twins. Their clothes were dusty, their hair was messy, but they sat straight with hope in their eyes. In front of them, on a small piece of cloth, lay one thing: an old broken toy car. "Toy car, only 10 rupees, the boy called out in a soft voice. "Please, uncle, 10 rupees. Some people passed by without looking. Some shook their heads. One man laughed and said, "Who will buy this junk?" But the twins didn't stop. They smiled and called out again politely. Armand stood a few steps away, watching. He didn't say anything. He just watched. He saw the boy gently dust the toy car with his small hand. He saw the girl trying to hide her growling stomach by holding it. Armand noticed how their eyes followed every person, hoping someone would stop, but no one did. Something inside Armand began to hurt. He didn't know why. He had seen poor people before. He had walked by beggars, but these kids? There was something different. They were not asking for help. They were trying to earn. He walked closer. "Why are you selling this toy?" he asked softly. The twins looked up. The boy smiled, showing a missing tooth. "It's our favorite toy, but Mama is sick. We need to buy her medicine." Armin's heart sank. The girl added quickly, "We don't need much, just some money. Then we can go home." Armin looked at the toy car. It was old. The wheels were scratched. The paint was peeling. But to the twins, it was gold. He bent down. "Isn't this your favorite toy?" The boy nodded. "Yes, but Mama is more important." Armin stayed silent. His mind was full of thoughts. Years ago, he too had sat by a roadside, trying to sell his mother's shawl. No one had stopped for him. He took out his wallet. He didn't have much, just a few notes, but he gave them 100 rupees. "Uncle," the twins said together, surprised. "That's too much," Armin smiled. "This car looks special. I think it's worth 100. The boy tried to give back some money, but Armin gently pushed his hand away. "It's okay," the girl whispered. "Thank you, Uncle. Mama will be so happy." Armin looked into their eyes. They were shining, not because of the money, but because someone had seen them. Someone had cared. He looked around. People were still walking past, busy with their lives. No one had stopped to ask these kids anything. But now Armin felt he couldn't just walk away. He knelt beside them. "Where is your mother?" The girl pointed down the street. "Our house is that way. It's not far." The boy added, "We can take you." Armand nodded. "Let's go." The three of them walked together. The twins held the money carefully, as if holding treasure. The boy held Armand's hand. The girl skipped beside them. They didn't feel like strangers anymore. As they walked, Armand asked, "What's your name?" "I'm Ayan," the boy said proudly. "I'm Ariba," said the girl. "And our mama's name is Natsia." "Natsia." Armin repeated the name softly. It felt familiar. He didn't know why. The road became quieter. The houses got smaller and older. Some didn't even have roofs. Finally, the twins stopped in front of a small broken house made of tin and bricks. "This is our home," Ayan said. Inside, a woman lay on a thin mattress. Her face was pale. She was coughing. But when she saw her children with Armin, she tried to sit up. "Mama!" Ariba cried, running to her. Natsia smiled weakly. "Who is this?" "This is the man who bought our toy car," Ayan said. "He gave us so much money." Armin stepped forward. "Hello, I'm Armin. I just wanted to help." Natsia tried to sit up again, but couldn't. She looked at Armin with tired eyes. "Thank you. I didn't want them to sell their toy, but I had no choice." Armin didn't say anything. He looked at the woman, then at the small room. There was no fan, no food, no medicine. He felt something rise in his chest, a mix of anger and sadness. He had promised himself he would never feel this way again. But here he was. He turned to the twins. They were sitting beside their mother, smiling, proud that they had helped her. Armand took a deep breath. He knew now. This was not the end of the story. This was only the beginning. Armand stood quietly inside the small house. The walls were cracked, the roof made of tin sheets. A single window let in a little light, and the floor was just dry mud. In the corner, a broken fan sat unused. It was clear this place had not seen comfort for a long time. The twins, Ayan and Ariba, sat beside their mother, Nadia. Her breathing was heavy. Her hands were thin, but her eyes were kind. She looked at Armand and tried to smile. "You helped my children today," she said, her voice soft and weak. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Armand replied gently. "Are you okay?" Nadia gave a tired nod. "Just fever and cough. It comes and goes." Armand could see the truth in her face. It wasn't just a fever. Her skin was pale, her lips dry. She was sick, and not just for a day or two. This had been going on for weeks, maybe months. He looked around the room. No medicine, no food. Just a few clothes hanging on a line and a small bag of rice in the corner. "How long have you been sick?" he asked. Nadia looked down. "Since winter. At first I thought it was just the cold, but it got worse." "And the children?" "They take care of me," she said, forcing a smile. "They're strong. They even try to earn money, like today." Armand looked at Ayan and Ariba. They were sitting quietly, watching their mother with worried eyes. Ayan held her hand. Ariba leaned against her shoulder. They were too young to carry such pain, yet they didn't complain. They were proud that they had helped, even by selling their only toy. Armand sat on the floor beside them. "Where is their father?" he asked. Nadia was silent for a moment. Then she looked away. "He left 2 years ago. One morning he just didn't come back. No calls, no message." Armand's jaw tightened. He knew the feeling of being left behind, of being forgotten. He looked at the twins again. No father, a sick mother, and still they smiled. "How do you survive?" he asked quietly. "I sew clothes for people when I have the strength," Nadia replied. "Some neighbors give food sometimes, but I don't like to beg." "You don't," Armand said. "You raised your children to be strong, kind, and honest. That's not begging, that's bravery." Nadia's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly. "People don't say things like that." Armand looked at her and said, "Maybe they should." The twins brought Armand a glass of water. It was warm but clean. He smiled and thanked them. They sat close to him now, like they had known him for years. Armand couldn't stop thinking. His mind was full of old memories, memories he had buried long ago. He remembered his own mother, sick, tired, working day and night. He remembered how she had hidden her pain, how she had sold her gold chain to buy him school books, and how one day she didn't wake up. He had felt helpless then. Lost, angry. He didn't want these kids to feel the same. "Did you go to a doctor?" Armand asked. Nadia shook her head. "I can't afford it. Government hospitals are too far, and the private ones—" She gave a short, dry laugh. "They don't even let you in without money." Armand stood up. He looked down at the three of them, Ayan, Ariba, and Nadia. They were not just strangers anymore. Something inside him had changed. "Get ready," he said. "I'm taking you to a doctor." Nadia sat up suddenly. No, I can't let you do that. You've already helped so much. We'll manage." Armand's voice was calm but firm. "You've managed enough. Now let someone help you." The twins looked at each other, then at their mother. Ariba whispered, "Please, Mama." Nadia hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. Armand smiled and turned to the twins. "Go get your shoes." Ayan jumped up. "Okay." Reba asked, "Uncle, will you come again tomorrow too?" Armand looked at her and nodded. "Yes, I'm not going anywhere." They left the house a few minutes later. The sun was setting, and the wind was cold. But inside Armand's heart, something had warmed up. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't have a lot of money. But he had made a decision. He had walked past many people in his life. But not this time. This time he was staying. And this time he would fight for them. The next morning the sky was gray. Light rain touched the ground, but the streets were still alive with sound, horns, voices, footsteps. In a small clinic, not far from the slum, Armand sat quietly on a bench. He watched as Natzia spoke to the nurse, her voice weak but calm. Ayan and Ariba sat beside him, swinging their legs and holding his hands tightly. It had been a long wait. The doctor came out at last. He called Armand aside and spoke in a low voice. She needs rest, proper food, and medicine. She has a chest infection that's been getting worse. But if we treat her now, she'll be okay. Armand felt relief, but also worry. Medicine cost money. Tests cost more. And the twins didn't have a single rupee left. Armand didn't have much either, but he didn't even think twice. Do what's needed, he said. I'll manage the cost. The doctor nodded. While the nurses gave Natzia her first dose of antibiotics, Armand walked to the small waiting area outside. The sky had darkened. Rain was falling harder now. He stood alone, his hands in his pockets, his mind full of noise. This family, these kids, they reminded him too much of someone himself. Years ago he had also waited in a clinic like this, hoping his mother would get better. He had knocked on many doors, asked neighbors for help. No one came, not even one kind soul. She had died on a cold night, alone, in pain. And Armand had changed after that. He had stopped trusting people, stopped dreaming. He built a small life far from feelings. He worked hard, kept to himself, helped no one. But now 2 little kids with an old toy car had shaken everything inside him. They didn't ask for pity. They didn't beg. They smiled and hoped even when they were hungry and cold, and that was strength. Suddenly he felt a small hand tug his sleeve. It was Ariba. Uncle, she said, Mama is asking for you. He walked back in and saw Natzia sitting up slowly, her eyes a little brighter after the medicine. She smiled at him. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Armand pulled up a chair. Don't, just focus on getting better. She looked at her children, who were now playing quietly in the corner. You know, she said, they always ask me where their father went. I never have an answer. Armand nodded slowly. It's not your fault. Natzia was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Do you have children? Armand shook his head. No, I never married. Family? No one left, he said. Only memories. She looked at him closely. You've lost someone. Yes, Armand said softly. My mother. He didn't say more, but the silence between them spoke louder than words. Was it a long time ago? Natzia asked. Yes, but pain doesn't follow time. Sometimes it sleeps, then it wakes up suddenly. Natzia nodded. She understood. He looked out the small clinic window. Rain still poured outside. I remember selling her things, little things, just like your kids sold that toy car. I remember her coughing in the night and me holding her hand. I was your children once. Natzia's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. Armand smiled sadly. Maybe that's why I couldn't walk past them. Maybe they reminded me of who I was and who I never want anyone else to be. The nurse came in and handed Natzia a packet of medicine. Armand stood up to pay at the counter. The total was more than what he had on him, but he gave what he had and promised to return later with the rest. Outside, the rain had slowed down. Armand walked with the twins, one on each side, holding his hands again. Natzia followed slowly. You've done more for us in 2 days than anyone ever has, she said. Armand didn't reply. He just gave a small nod. As they reached their small house, the twins rushed inside to find a dry blanket for their mother. Natzia sat on the small step and looked up at Armand. I don't know why you helped us, she said, but I feel like God sent you. Armand looked at her, unsure how to reply. Maybe, he said finally, I was sent, or maybe I just found a part of myself I thought was lost. She looked confused. Armin smiled. I don't want your kids to grow up like did. That's enough reason, isn't it? Natsia looked at him for a long moment. Then she gave a quiet smile. Yes, she said. That's more than enough. As the day ended, Armin sat alone under a small tree near their home. The street was quiet. The sky was clearing, and inside his heart something was beginning to heal. He had come across 2 children and a toy car, but what he had really found was a purpose. 3 days had passed since Armin met the twins and their mother. Each day he visited their small home. He brought fresh food, medicine, and fruits. He also brought stories, laughter, and a warmth the house had not felt in years. Ayan and Ariba waited for him at the corner every morning, their eyes full of excitement. Natsia was slowly getting better. The fever had gone down. Her coughing had eased. But Armin could see she was still weak. She smiled, but her body was tired. That evening, as the sky turned golden, Armin sat on the floor of their little house with the twins beside him. They were drawing pictures on a piece of cardboard using broken crayons. One drawing showed a big house with a sun and trees. Another had a toy car, this time shiny and new. Natsia came out from the back room holding a cup of tea. For you? She said, offering it to Armin. He took it and smiled. Thank you, you should be resting. I'm better today, she said. Thanks to you. He nodded. It's nothing, but it wasn't nothing. Armin had been using his small savings for their food and medicine. He didn't say it out loud, but he knew he couldn't do this forever. His own life was simple. No job, just a little freelance. Work from home. But something inside him refused to walk away from these children. That night, as the twins fell asleep on the mattress, Armand sat with Natsia outside the door. A small candle flickered beside them. Do you have plans for the future? He asked her. Natsia laughed quietly. My only plan was to survive the week. He looked at her, serious. You need a way to earn from home. Something simple. Something steady. She looked down. I used to sew clothes, I'm good at it. But my sewing machine broke last year. I couldn't afford to fix it. Armin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What if I help you get a new one? Natsia looked at him in shock. No, Armin. You've already done too much. He held up his hand. It's not a gift, it's a chance, a start. I can't take more from you. You're not taking, he said. You're building, for your kids. She looked at him for a long time, unsure what to say. Armand stood up slowly. Think about it, he said softly. I'll come tomorrow. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat on his small bed in his rented room and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed with messages about overdue bills. His landlord had asked for rent. He had work to finish. But all he could think about were those kids sleeping on a thin mattress. He opened a drawer beside his bed. Inside was an old photo of his mother. He stared at it for a long moment. You always told me to help someone if I could, he whispered. I think I finally listened. The next morning, Armin walked into a small shop in the market. He pointed at a simple black sewing machine. How much? He asked. 7,000 rupees, the shopkeeper said. It was more than Armand wanted to spend. But he pulled out his wallet anyway. It held 8,000, almost everything he had left. I'll take it. By afternoon, Armand stood again, at Natsia's door, holding the box with both hands. The twins screamed with joy when they saw him. Mama! Mama! Look what Uncle brought! Natsia stepped out slowly and stared at the box. I told you not to. Armin smiled. Too late. She covered her face with her hands and sat down. Tears ran down her cheeks. Armand knelt beside her. This is not charity. This is a tool. You are strong. Use it. She looked at him, her voice shaking. Why are you doing this? Armand's voice was calm. Because no one did it for me. And I promised myself if I ever saw someone fighting the way my mother did, I would not walk away. Natsia cried quietly. The twins hugged her tightly. That night, for the first time in months, there was joy inside the house. Ayan and Ariba danced around the sewing machine. Nazia touched it like it was something holy. And Arman? He sat quietly, watching them. He didn't say much, but inside his heart was full. He hadn't just given them a machine, he had given them hope. And somewhere deep down, he had given himself a new reason to live. The sewing machine stood proudly in the corner of the small room. For others, it may have looked like a simple machine, but for Nazia and her children, it was something more. It was the beginning of a new life. Arman visited again the next morning. As usual, the twins ran to greet him. Ayan held his hand. Ariba showed him a piece of cloth with colorful designs drawn in crayon. "Mama is stitching again," she shouted with a big smile. Inside the house, Nazia was already at work. Her fingers moved with care and confidence. A small piece of cloth turned into a beautiful pillow cover. The sound of the sewing machine filled the room like music. "Look at this," she said, holding up her work. "It's not perfect, but it's a start." Arman smiled. "It's more than perfect. It's beautiful." He noticed the change in her face. There was color in her cheeks again. Her back was straighter. Her eyes held light, not just pain. Nazia had already spread the word in the neighborhood. A few women had brought cloth for her to sew. Small jobs, blouse stitching, pillow covers, baby frocks. The money was little, but it was honest. "I made 200 rupees yesterday," she said proudly. "Not much, but it felt good." "You'll make more soon," Arman said. "People trust you." Just then, an old neighbor came in with a bag of fabric. "My niece is getting married next month," she said. "Can you sew 6 suits?" Natsia's eyes widened. 6? Can you do it?" She looked at Arman, then at her machine. "Yes, I can." After the woman left, Natsia turned to Arman. "I haven't had such a big order in years." "You can handle it," he said. "I'll help with whatever you need." That evening, Arman stayed back to help sort the fabrics. Ayan and Ariba folded them carefully and brought tea for their mother. Arman fixed the broken light bulb in the corner, so Natsia could work even at night. Time passed slowly but beautifully. The next few days were busy. The house that once felt quiet and empty now felt alive. The sewing machine ran every day. The children laughed more. The air smelled fresh fabric and homemade food. One day, Arman brought school books for the twins. "You're both smart," he said. "You should be in school." Natsia looked worried. "But who will pay the fees?" "I'll handle it," Arman replied. "Let them learn. That's the real future." Natsia didn't argue this time. She just nodded, her eyes full of tears. The next morning, Ayan and Ariba wore clean clothes and packed their new school bags. They looked like a dream Natsia once thought was lost. As they walked to school with Arman, Ayan asked, "Uncle, are you Ricky?" Arman stopped walking and looked at them. "Because I know how it feels to have nothing," he said. "And I also know how one small act can change someone's life." The kids didn't fully understand, but they nodded anyway. Days passed. Natsia completed the wedding suits perfectly. The neighbor paid her double, saying, "You've got magic in your hands." She bought vegetables and rice from the market herself that evening, for the first time in months. And when she cooked, she made enough for Arman, too. "I've never seen them this happy," she said quietly as they ate dinner together. "And it's because of you." Arman smiled, but inside, he felt something he hadn't in years: belonging. But just as everything was going well, a knock came at the door one evening. Natsia opened it. Her face froze. A man stood there, dirty clothes, long beard, tired eyes. It was her husband. The children stared in silence. Arman stood up slowly, his expression hardening. I came back," the man said softly. "I heard you were sick. I want to help." Nazia didn't speak. Ayan moved behind his mother. Ariba held her hand tightly. Arman stepped forward. "You left them." "I had problems," the man said. "I didn't know what to do." "And now?" Arman asked. "You think you can just walk back into their lives?" "I'm still their father." Silence filled the room. Nazia looked at her children, then at Arman. She was shaking. I need time, she said. The man looked down. Okay, I'll come tomorrow. He walked away. Natsia sat down slowly. Her hands trembled. Armand placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone. She looked at him with wide, scared eyes. I don't know what to do. You'll figure it out, he said. But don't forget, you built all this on your own. He left. You stayed strong. That matters. Natsia nodded, wiping her tears. The children sat quietly, unsure of what the next day would bring. And Armand. He stood in the corner, watching them, feeling a storm rise inside his chest. Everything was going well. But now, things were about to change. The next morning the house was silent. Usually Ayan and Ariba would be laughing, getting ready for school. But today, they sat quietly beside their mother. Their eyes were filled with fear. Natsia hadn't slept all night. Her mind was spinning. Her hands trembled as she folded clothes, trying to stay calm. But she couldn't forget the face of the man at her door, the man who had once called himself her husband, and now he was coming back. The knock came. Around noon, Armand was already there. He stood beside the children, protective, alert. He had a bad feeling. Something about the man didn't sit right. The door creaked open. Natsia's husband stood outside. His name was Rafik. He looked different now. Thinner, older, but his eyes still carried that coldness. I came to talk, Rafik said. Natsia stepped aside slowly, allowing him to enter. He looked around the small home, his eyes landing on the sewing machine, the school bags, and then, Armand. Who's he? Rafik asked sharply. I'm a friend, Armand said calmly. I helped when no one else did, Rafik snorted. Looks like more than just a friend. Ayan stepped forward. He takes care of us. Where were you? Rafik looked at his son, surprised by the courage in his voice. I made mistakes, Rafik muttered. But I'm back now. I want to make things right. Nazia didn't speak. Her hands were clenched tightly. Make things right? Armand said. After years of leaving them to suffer? I was jobless, Rafik said. I had no money. I was broken. You had a choice. Natsia finally spoke, her voice trembling, but steady. And you chose to run, Rafik looked down. Yes, but I want to fix it now. You want to fix it, Armand repeated. Now that they're standing on their feet again? Rafik's tone changed. What are you trying to say? That I don't care. I'm saying actions speak louder than words, Armand said. You didn't call, you didn't write, you just left. The room was thick with tension. Ariba hid behind her mother. Ayan stood beside Armand like a little soldier. Nazia looked at Rafik. What do you want? She asked directly. I want to stay, he said, with my family. Armand's heart sank. He looked at Natsia. He knew this was her choice to make, not his. But deep inside, he feared the damage Rafik could bring. I need time, Natsia said. Give me a few days. Rafik nodded slowly. Fine. I'll stay at my brother's house. For now. He walked out without another word. When the door closed, Armand turned to Natsia. Are you okay? She nodded weakly, but her eyes were full of storm. That night, Natsia didn't eat. She sat by the sewing machine, stitching silently. Armand offered to leave her alone, but she shook her head. I need to talk, she said finally. She looked at him with teary eyes. You came into our lives when we had nothing. You gave us light. You treated my children like your own. And now, he comes back like nothing happened. Armand listened quietly. I feel guilty, she whispered. I feel confused. Part of me says forgive him. The other part says protect. My children. You're not weak, Armand said gently. You're a mother, and mothers are the strongest people in the world. She looked up at him. If I let him stay, what happens to everything I've built? What happens to you, Armand? Took a deep breath. I'm not here to replace anyone, he said. But I won't lie, I care about you, I care about the kids, I feel like this is my family too now. Tears rolled down Natsia's cheeks. I don't want to lose what we have. You don't have to, Armand said. But this is your story, not mine. I'll stand beside whatever decision you make. Nazia looked at her children asleep on the floor. I'll protect them, she said, even if it means making the hardest choice of my life. The next day, she visited a lawyer, quietly. Armin waited outside the office. When she came out, her face was firm. What did you do? He asked. I asked about custody and legal. Right, she said. I want to know my options. Are you thinking of divorce? I'm thinking of freedom, she said. And peace. Armin said nothing. But inside, he felt hope. That evening, Rafik came again. Before he could speak, Nazia handed him a letter. What's this? He asked. Information, she said. I'm not the same woman you left. I've changed, and I'm not afraid anymore. Rafik opened the letter and read it. You're divorcing me? Nazia stood tall. Yes, he raised his voice. What? About the kids? They're mine, she said. I raised them. You left. You gave up your rights the day you walked out. Rafik looked at Armin, angry. This is because of him, isn't it? No, she said. This is because of me. I'm finally choosing what's best for us. Rafik stared at her, but he saw it. She meant every word. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just left, for good. That night Armin brought sweets. The children danced. Nazia cried. But these were tears of strength, not sadness. She had stitched clothes for weeks. Now she had stitched back her life. 1 month later, the IU little house felt different. It wasn't just the fresh paint on the walls or the new curtains that Nazia had stitched herself. It wasn't just the smell of homemade food or the laughter of children running through the room. It was the peace. Ayan and Ariba were now going to school every day. They came home with drawings, stories, and stars on their homework. Their smiles were wider, their eyes brighter. Nazia had more sewing orders than ever before. Word had spread about her neat stitching and honest prices. Even shopkeepers started giving her regular work. She now had a board outside her home. Nazia's stitching, custom work done here. People would stop and smile when they saw it. Some even said, this is what strength looks like. But the biggest change was something else. It was how Nazia smiled now. She didn't hide it anymore. Armin still visited every day. He helped Ayan with homework, fixed anything broken in the house, and sometimes even helped deliver stitched clothes. But most of all, he simply stood by them. One evening, Nazia was sitting under the tree outside her home, finishing a baby dress. The twins were playing with a paper kite. Armin brought tea and sat beside her. You've done something beautiful here, he said. Nazia smiled. Not alone. No, he said. You did the hard part. You chose to fight. You chose to live. Looked at him, her heart full. I was broken, she said. You helped me see I wasn't worthless. You were never worthless, Armin said gently. Just forgotten, but not anymore. She looked down at her sewing. I'm scared sometimes. What if this all goes away? He shook his head. No. This time you built it with your own hands. No one can take that from you. Just then, Ayan ran up with the kite. Uncle, help us fly it, Armin stood up laughing. Of course. The three of them ran around in the open ground. Nazia watched, tears forming again. Not from sadness, but from something rare. Happiness. That night, they all sat together on the floor to eat. It wasn't a feast. Just rice, lentils, and pickles, but it tasted like gold. Ariba leaned on Armin's shoulder. Uncle, are you going to stay forever? He smiled and looked at Nazia before answering. If your mama lets me, he said softly. Nazia blushed but said nothing. After the kids went to bed, Nazia walked to the sewing machine. She opened a small box under it and took out something. Little toy car. It was the same one the twins had tried to sell the day Armin met them. She handed it to him. Do you remember this? He nodded. Of course, this toy changed everything. It's yours, she said. No, he replied. It's ours. They smiled at each other. A few weeks later, a small gathering happened in the neighborhood. Nazia had been invited to speak at the local women's center. She stood in front of the small crowd, nervous at first. But then she spoke. "I was once someone who thought life was over," she said. "I had no money, no help, and no hope. But someone believed in me, and slowly I began to believe in myself." She held up a small stick